media, another of the countless avoidable symptoms of deranged hypercapitalism. Along with a bustling economy of abandoned mall exploration YouTube channels, free-floating garbage islands, and microplastics gunking up your bloodstream. The hunt for and discussion of lost media has spawned its own communities, its innumerable video essays, and its fights to be the first to discover a glimmering rarity in an old pile of tapes or an eBay auction. While some lost media is entirely fabricated, particularly the sensationalized, unknown children's shows one guy on Reddit half remembers as being more frightening than Cannibal Holocaust. There's quite a lot of really fascinating examples of good films and shows that are simply gone. I am in no way interested in being part of a media hunter community, as I am something of a lone wolf, but that doesn't mean I have anything against anyone who does. Sadly, despite the vast amount of effort that goes into hunting down lost media, pieces are often found simply because some fellow with a VHS happened to upload a digital transfer on an otherwise average Tuesday. That said, I think the media that is lost is culturally invaluable. We ought to be looking back as much as forward so we never lose our way. To shine a light on some lost media and celebrate the series and studios from which it was lost, I have compiled a list of furry entries from the Lost Media Wiki, a website which contains articles on everything from Lost Doraemon cartoon series, currently partially found in 2025, to, for some reason, the Marquis de Sade's 120 Days of Sodom, a novel found in 1904. There is a seemingly endless array of fascinating pieces of lost media, so what I'm going to present is just a small selection of the interesting furry ones that are on my radar. Without further ado, let's lose ourselves, shall we? Some of you may recall me mentioning this bit of lost media in my Top 10 Foxes video, but I'd like to detail this one a little more. Les Cotoneurs Associés was founded in 1982 by Denis Olivieri, who has a few directing and writing credits on IMDb, but is otherwise a bit of a modern mystery. The studio's first production was the animated series Bully, a series about these little snowman guys, starting in 1989. Before you get worried, I'm not crazy enough to consider snowmen furry, although there are some philosophers who might argue otherwise. But I just want to show you a picture of these guys and read some of the episode titles. The Coughing Penguin, The Bully Revolt, Bully Has the Hiccups, A Gift for Bully, The Contagion. Without actually having watched this show, it sounds like there's a thread of debilitating illness among these jolly snow people. Well, it wouldn't be a discussion of lost media without a hackneyed attempt to push some clumsy creepypasta. Why spend your adult life discussing media with a critical and artistic eye when you can just pull millions of views by filling the bilious pustule of the internet with another bloody SpongeBob thumbnail? Since Les Cotoneurs Associés was founded in 1982, you may be wondering what they were doing for 7 years before animating Bully in 1989. I am so glad you asked. It seems they were doing interstitial and commercial animation during that time, including some of the ads appearing on their reel. And it's that reel I want to talk about because much of the animation that appears in it is lost or otherwise unknown. Let's take some shots from the reel and examine them, shall we? First and foremost, really, we have this stunning bird woman holding some kind of V-shaped trophy, which might be a hint as to the brand name. This one really hurts my heart because the quality of this reel is very low, but the quality of this bird woman is very high. So there's a discrepancy there that I'd like to fix. I did my due diligence. I did a lot of searching. And though I found many other French commercials that I added to my archive, I could not find anything related to this bird lady. At this point, I think the best bet would be to draw that trophy facing forwards and see if an internet search brings up a similar logo. Also a furry interest in this reel, this cool dinosaur, this nasty little cockroach, this dog spilling gold on this light post, this weird egg-eating tooth guy who looks kind of mid-TF, and last, but definitely not least, this smoothly animated Tex Avery-esque wolf, possibly for Père Dodu, who had a number of similar commercials which were so popular they actually spawned merch. And yes, these Père Dodu commercials are from Richard Williams. Hopefully one or more of these comes up in the future, but until then we'll just have to wait for French people to digitize their VHS collections and put them on archive. A lot of my commercials actually come chopped out of large segments of digitized tapes, which have not been categorized in any way. For example, to find a higher quality version of this gorgeous Fruit Loops movie dog,
the autograph hound won't let me have breakfast.
I actually went to uploads of VHS tapes from the same year and about the same channels and searched and searched until I found one in higher quality. That's how it's done, baby. Let's move on to my next item. Airing in 1987, this was the last TV series Rankin Bass produced. S-T-R-I-P. Yes, that Rankin Bass. And most of this puppy is lost. 4 different cartoons comprise this show, with episodes consisting of multiple segments. The first of these was Tiger Sharks, in the grand tradition of Rankin Bass's powerhouse Thundercats and the lesser-known Silverhawks. Tiger Sharks took place on planet Water-O. Wow, you really used to be able to get away with names like that? And featured a bunch of humans shape-shifting into their super-powered submarine selves. There was Mako, who turned into a shark, Bronk, who turns into a seahorse hybrid, Angel, who turns into an angelfish, Gup, the Cocker Spaniel, who turns into a guppy, Octavia with, you guessed it, an octopus transformation, Lorca, who turns into a human orca hybrid,
It's good to be back, Tiger Sharks. I feel like my old self again.
And finally, my 2 favorites, Dolph, who transforms into a dolphin hybrid with a high amount of gay furry appeal.
And me, I'm a dolphin. We're almost fish.
And Walro, who perhaps predictably turns into a big walrus guy. There was also a host of villains, but the only one I really want to mention here is Dragonstein.
I'd like to introduce you to a dear friend, Dragonstein. Incinerate him!
Who is a kind of Frankenstein monster dragon character. He's got bolts in his neck. And there's actually a very interesting looking inflation sequence in one of the lost episodes. You can find the sequence, but it's so low quality that it's not worth bothering. The next segment of the comic strip was called Mini Monsters, featuring 2 human children who are so, well, monstrous that their parents send them to a camp filled with actual monsters. The mere idea of these exact monsters used to terrify these parents' generation, but they seem fine with sending their children to live among them for real. Wow, boomers really hated their kids at all stages, didn't they? This was yet another show following younger or kid versions of Universal monsters, all based on public domain creeps, the likes of which include Groovy Ghoulies, Drac Pack, Gravedale High, etc. In this show, we have the offspring of famous movie monsters, such as Dracky, Franklin, and Wolfie. I'll give you one guess who each of their fathers are. There's a few incidental characters like this big sloppy monster named Klutz, and Caulfield, the impeccably vest-dressed raven.
In this group, you're the weird one, ordinary mortal.
Hey, who you calling ordinary, you feathered flake?
Feathered flake!
Who has an adorable voice and accompanies Melvin, the, I'm gonna say warlock, who is also the son of Merlin.
That's prestidigitation, Melvin.
The best part is the camp director, always robed in shadow, howling out directives while pounding on a pipe organ.
The din-din is served, campers.
Actually kind of unsettling. In the first episode, Sherman, the human child voiced by none other than Seth Green, gets turned into a rabbit, then a turtle, then a cat, then a mouse. only to finally be reconstituted into his human form inside a wall, resulting in this airtight horror of asphyxiation. I'd like to point out that Wolfie becomes wolfier when he howls at the full moon in episode 2.
That's better.
With longer teeth and larger muscles, he immediately rushes the group and attacks them with a number of bad jokes.
Hey, did you hear the one about the crow who always complained without cause?
Well, at least he actually looks like an animal now. Lagoon, that's capital L-A space capital G-O-O-N, appears in the next scene and he kind of steals the show.
Hey, I'm Lagoon.
You sure are.
He introduces himself as the camp lifeguard, and I must say he's got more of a muzzle than typical fishman designs, and I dig it. Anyone else see a resemblance here? Another moment of furry interest comes when, in episode 5, Sherman and his sister Melissa's parents visit. The dad immediately gets turned into this dumpy rat man.
Squeak. Oh no! Charles, you're a rat. Who are you calling a rat?
In another episode written by V. Romeo Mueller, for more information watch my video on the 12 Days of Christmas, we get the tidbit that Caulfield once dated a cockatoo named Esmeralda.
Ah, you've never loved lads till you've known someone like Esmeralda. She was a cockatoo from Venezuela.
But the main draw is lots of screen time for Lagoon, showing off just how snouty he is.
Getting ready for my big day. Oh, I'm so beautiful, I can hardly resist myself.
He develops a crush on this disappointing mermaid, but luckily she rebuffs him and he gets with this monstrous babe instead.
Let's go swimming.
Monster love pride. There's quite a pedigree in this show because if you look at the shape of the characters' heads, you can easily see the ghosts of Rankin Bass productions in decades past. What? You forgot they directed the ethereal celebration of life, The Last Unicorn? Moving on, Street Frogs seemed the most derived from a focus group meeting of the bunch, with a group of cool, street-smart rapping frogs running around having adventures while also moonlighting for Snappy Sam's at his diner. Each episode follows the frogs as they navigate the world of showbiz, from trying to get their big break to the problem of sleazy agents, because it turns out they're in a band.
The new sensation of syncopation, Spider!
Very exciting.
We've got Loretta, hey, pink hair, Dr. Slick, Spider, Moose the Loose, and Big Max. Every episode I could find has a musical number, and in the first, it serves as the backing of a montage where the frogs cater a wedding for some pretty cute background characters.
He's the tip-top. He can do it like nobody's ever done. He is frog dancer #1. Mr. Frog Dancer, he's the tip-top. He can do it, he can hip-hop. Yeah, Mr. Frog Dancer, he's the tip-top, he's the tip-top.
50s diner aesthetic was huge in the 80s, and this show capitalizes on that. Even for a show about popular music, which always feels a little corporate integration-y for me, Street Frogs does have charm, and that's probably because Rankin Bass tends to ooze with it. The last cartoon in the comic strip is Karate Cat, about a cat who knows karate. He works for the McClaws Detective Agency, solving crimes and protecting the innocent. And just like in Street Frogs, the 50s were coming back in the 80s, so Karate Cat lives in a mid-century world populated entirely by cats and, well, there was at least one fox. Karate Cat teams up with Catgut, the fat one, and Catatonic, the sleepy one. But the best part is his boss, a woman named Big Mama, and what a woman.
Here he is, Mrs. Katzenheimer. This is Karate Cat.
Sorry to keep you waiting, Big Mama.
I'm sure this is a reference to an old movie or series but I'm not familiar with, but in a twist, Big Mama is the ex-wife of the main villain, Big Papa.
You!
And amazingly, there are 2 more women on the team.
There's nothing in his head to block it. Oh, Chow Baby, I think he's cute.
Chow Baby and Meow Baby. I can't tell if they're sisters or lovers.
Oh, my goodness. Come on, Meow Baby.
Hey, where are you going?
Got an idea. We'll be in touch.
But this is my case.
Oh, sit down. We're a team.
With so many female characters, this random cartoon passes the Bechdel test quite frequently. By the way, the Bechdel test is not a metric of rating a piece of media, merely a lens by which to analyze it. Even cartoons I absolutely love don't pass the test even once, usually because there's only ever one woman in the cast, and her personality is that she's the one woman in the cast. Overall, the comic strip has a little more going for it than your typical Saturday morning fare. Although I say this with the caveat that 1987 was a damn good year for Saturday morning cartoons. It's got a fresh presentation as an anthology of multiple series, and each show has a wide range of expressions and movements. The music is pretty good too. Check out the smoking hot jazz score in Karate Cat.
Hey, try to lose me now. Karate Cat calling Big Mama. Come in, Big Mama.
Karate Cat, where are you?
Hard to tell from up here.
Incredible stuff. Let's move on to my next entry. In the beginning, there were none. Then, in 1989, Nickelodeon commissioned 8 5-minute pilots and planned to choose 4 to develop into their first proprietary series. In the end, they chose only 3. Rugrats, Doug, and Fuck John K. What were the other pilots? I'm so glad you asked. We had the Crowville Chronicles, a Cosgrove Hall produced pilot about a cute little reporter crow working at a newspaper. Unfortunately, very little survives of this pilot, which is sad because Cosgrove Hall had already produced 2 popular and rather well-written shows for British media giant ITV, Danger Mouse and Count Duckula, which Nickelodeon had been busily syndicating on their network.
Every weekend at 9, 8 Central on Nickelodeon.
Every weekend on the network you can really sink your teeth into. Nickelodeon.
The other 4 pilots included 2 based on Nickelodeon's animated bumpers. Those are the segments identifying a network that play between shows and commercials. The first of these was the Doo-Oposaurs, created by Joey Album. This pilot was dubbed the Thunder Lizards. No relation, but it didn't make the cut. Unfortunately, we know next to nothing about this one, but we do know a little more about the next one. Colossal Pictures animated the Big Beast Quintet for Nickelodeon.
On the Lord, what hero, what Nick? On the Lord, what hero, what Nick, Nick? On the Ricky while living #1 Nickelodeon.
Which was turned into a pilot called Channel Zero. No, not that Channel Zero. We have a show Bible for this one that was uploaded to archive.org, and it shows how cute this show would have been. These designs have a ton of personality, and the unique style is really eye-catching. The quintet were going to act as reporters. Whoa, reporters were huge in the late 80s, early 90s. Probably because the rise of cable news.
Ninjas.
One of my favorite details from the show Bible is that it would have taken place in a city called, wait for it, Animatropolis. So that's 6 pilots down. Next up, I'd like to say that Cosgrove Hall also produced the 7th pilot Trash, which was stop motion and has 0 surviving information other than a few lines of text about a superhero living in Trash Town. Thrilling. Now for the big reveal. The 8th pilot is another one of my lost media picks because it leads down a bit of a rabbit hole, and as a wolf, I love sticking my nose in these things. Yum! Enter the Weasel Patrol. No, not them. These little guys.
There are times when the criminal element threatens to overwhelm even the greatest crime fighters. And so, when no logical choice remains... The Weasel Patrol. What?
Good work, Livingston. You found the evidence.
But the glass nettle's eaten the last of the cheesies!
The cheesies!
They were the stars of a one-issue comic book spin-off of the extremely furry Fusion series, which debuted in 1987 from Eclipse Comics. Creators Ken Macklin and Leela Dowling adapted their characters for the pilot, but very little of it remains. In fact, all we have of it is thanks to the guy who played Banjo on these clips, because he was the one who uploaded them. You can tell they were influenced by the cover from the comic book, complete with the weasels riding sheep and goats. It's hard to say how good it would have been, but the animation is certainly cute. I'm guessing it was going to roughly follow the comic, which involved a bad guy called Reefer Rick. Yeah, I'm guessing they had to change that for Nickelodeon. Wrestling cows by dressing them up as tourists. At least one of them fell in love with him. That's furry, right? You may be wondering at this point if Mr. Ken Macklin has done anything else, because his art has a ton of appeal. I really can't overstate how much I like this guy's art. In addition to being part of the underground comics scene in the 1970s and filling it full of weasels, he wrote and illustrated Dr. Wattstop in 1989, animated on Monkey Island 2, did the cover for Maniac Mansion, and designed a character you may have heard of called Bubsy, who has recently received new life as the subject of 1001 porn drawings, a phenomenon which I neither understand nor enjoy. To each their own. That said, I believe Mr. Macklin deserves his roses. Next up. This is the second time I am given the pleasure of mentioning the long-running Italian television series Carosello, the first being in my favorite horses and commercials episode. Carosello ran from 1957 to 1977 and consisted entirely of various brands doing advertising skits with live actors and singers, puppets, or fully animated cartoons. This little guy, Calimero, first showed up in 1963 as a spokesbaby for Mira Lanza's Ava detergent, revealing that he is in fact just completely filthy. Calimero was created by brothers Nino and Tony Pagot, and voiced by Ignazio Colnahi. Studio Pagot animated these original Calimero cartoons, and he quickly became an Italian icon with no fewer than 4 animated series devoted to him. The first, beginning in 1972, was a joint production between Studio Pagot and Toei Animation and featured longer stories with a cast of recurring characters. The second series ran in 1992, It was animated by Telescream, the Netherlands production studio who was responsible for all those deliciously bizarre Japan-Dutch productions in the 80s and 90s, like Wowzer,
He's out the class, yeah, he's double the heat. He can steal your heart, even in your sleep, yeah. Steal your heart.
and Oxtails.
Hey, big guy, you are my kind of hero. Kind of shy, but you're nobody's fool. Make me cry from laughing at the silly things you do. Flying high whenever I'm with you.
That, of course, leaves us with the third series,
Children, don't you know you have no business being here?
a CGI production of Gaumont Animation, the French animation studio responsible for Season 1 of the fabulous Redwall series,
I'm sure you won't mind me doing this.
and this cartoon that definitely does not look real. My favorite series out of the bunch were the original shorts, which had this ancient UPA J-Wardian simplistic quality to them, with pretty, almost impressionistic backgrounds. The humor is sharp, with Calimero often messing up or breaking something or lucking into being a hero. There are recurring characters such as Calimero's put-upon father, this adorable clever fox who gets away with a lot of his scams and schemes, Calimero's teacher, and Calimero's clueless mother. He never understands the capriciousness with which adults treat him, and his catchphrase is "È un'ingiustizia però" in Italian, or in English,
It's an injustice, it is.
Usually I really hate little guy characters like this and believe they deserve only malice, but Calimero is different. Calimero is the voice of the people. I adore this tiny little man. Sadly, fewer than half of the 78 shorts of this period are found and watchable, and that's only thanks to folks uploading Laserdisc and VHS transfers for the 2 editions that came out in the UK. Hopefully one day some Italian media mogul will get it in his head to share Calimero with the world, and then we will all enjoy him again. I've got one more piece of furry lost media for you, so let's check it out, shall we?
Be careful with matches and campfires.
Would you believe Smokey Bear has his own lost media? And that it was produced by Rankin Bass? Seems like a lot of Rankin Bass animated stuff has been lost, such as those mentioned earlier and The Reluctant Dragon and Mr. Toad's Show.
He's the most reluctant dragon that the world has ever seen.
Which is kind of sad because I unironically love everything Rankin Bass does. Jules Bass and Maury Laws, the longtime music director of basically everything Rankin Bass made between 1964 and 1987, wrote the theme song, which recounted the very real tale of Smokey's origins.
In New Mexico, many years ago, a fire trapped a bear.
After a human-caused wildfire that burned 16,000 acres in New Mexico's Lincoln Forest in 1950, firefighters discovered a 3-month-old bear cub clinging to a tree. They flew him to Santa Fe for medical treatment and nursing care, and after he recovered, the Forest Service took him to the National Zoo in Washington to serve as a symbol of fire prevention. Real heads know the Smokey the Bear campaign ad debuted in 1944, but back then you could just pluck an animal out of the woods and force it to personify a concept like fire safety. A whole cast of forest animals surrounded Smokey in this cartoon, with classic alliterative naming conventions like Floyd the Fox, Butch Buzzard, Freddie Fume, whose rotund little indolent self must be somebody's baby, and, Hiram the Snake. Fairly strong designs round out the cast, and while the stories don't seem to exclusively be tied to fire prevention, Smokey is always there at the end to tell you not to play with matches.
You'll do me a big favor if you give every match you find to your mother or dad. Remember, Smokey's friends don't play with matches.
Check out this episode involving a firefighters convention. Look at all these handsome men in uniform. Even the villains, a pair of rat waiters intent on stealing the treasury dues, look so cute in their little waistcoats. Unfortunately, Bunny and Cougar, Smokey's least valuable rangers, decide to continue their prank spree by setting off a few hundred fireworks under everyone's chairs. Luckily, their obsession with terrorism results in filling the stolen briefcase with explosives. I'd like to point out here that Benny the Hare is voiced by Paul Soles, none other than Hermie from Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer.
Deputy here from Piney Woods. Put her there, friend.
Meanwhile, Gabby the Cougar was voiced by Karl who was born in 1929 and is still kicking.
Let's get the party going.
Rock on! He was the voice of the Foreman Elf and Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, and he's also been in things like The Raccoons and Hello Kitty's Furry Tale Theater. Now, do you see that little ontherunvideo.com logo in the corner? While it is nice that the show is available at all, it's kind of sad that all we have are these scans of deteriorating film reels kindly posted on YouTube by the Oklahoma Firefighters Museum, who also upload a lot of old PSA TV spots with some 80s kid furry crushes, like Scruff McGruff. These lost TV resellers are a dime a dozen and usually ship out DVDs of things you can find if you look hard enough on various video sharing websites. That means the quality is typically much lower than you'd expect from, obviously, an official DVD release. In an age where Warner Brothers responded to the independent release of The Day the Earth Blew Up, a masterpiece animated by a ton of amazing members of the furry community, by removing the entire back catalog of classic Looney Tunes from Max, we have to find a way to preserve our media before it gets lost. In case you needed a reason to cancel your Max subscription, let this be it. When Warner Brothers Discovery, led by featureless potato head David Zaslav, took over Max, they sold The Day the Earth Blew Up, which had been greenlit for Max, to Ketchup Entertainment, and now they seem intent on sabotaging the film's limited release for no apparent reason than spite. Support The Day the Earth Blew Up. It's a great movie. It's so nice to see 2D animation back in the theater, and if it is playing near you, I encourage you to go see it. Remember, it's an independent release from Ketchup Entertainment. On that note, I'd like to end the episode by urging you to support physical media. There are a number of great independent film distributors, and I'd like to shout out Deaf Crocodile specifically. You may be interested to know they recently released a 4K restoration, not an AI upscale, but a true scan of the original 35mm film negative of mystery horror masterpiece Felody, complete with interviews and commentaries. Also on order from Deaf Crocodile are Tamala 2010, A Punk Cat in Space, which must be seen to be believed, the endlessly charming Benny's Bathtub, and last but not least, Cat City, a favorite of mine with a ton of special features, and yes, I will one day make an episode about Cat City and its sequel. Check out Deaf Crocodile if you get a chance. Once again, I'd like to thank all my Laserdisc Patreon supporters. For only $5, you too can hear me find your name on an unmarked VHS and speak it aloud, thus furthering the curse. So thank you, Kaosu, Jimbo Husky, Tosca, Glotzilla, Neon Tape Your Guts, Kadath, Chrono Flash, Dominic Foxley, Victor the Mewtwo, Kilbaro Khan, JF, Dylan Opossum, Alex McFall, Joe the English Otter, Silly Scotty Dog, Kooky Trails, Palexel, Stubadub, Crown, Norman Whitetail, Goddle Drury, Azalea the Witch, Princess Isabella, Vera Lycaon, and Miorja. Thank you all so much, and I'll see you next time I find some lost media that's of interest.